Hello, my name is Patrick Usher. I'm an ME-CFS patient and author of the book Understanding ME-CFS and Strategies for Healing. And in today's video, we have the second part of my interview with Jess Dove London about her new artificial intelligence platform, Turney, which has been specifically designed for, among other conditions, ME-CFS and Long Covid. Now, if you're totally new to Turney, I suggest that you check out the episode from a few days ago in which we went over all the basics, how it specifically works for ME-CFS and Long Covid, how as a platform it has actually indexed all of the papers, all of the conferences, like many patient discussions, podcasts, YouTube videos, different events in relation to ME-CFS and Long Covid from the last 10 years. So that when you ask Turney a question, it's really drawing on a very wide range of sources. We also talked about how it sends you every week a really specific update tailored to you. So you input your health history, your concerns, your interests, and then once a week, Turny analyzes like 1,000, 2,000 different data points about ME-CFS and Long Covid and picks out around 15 things to send to you, which it believes is the most relevant for your situation right now. So go and check out that video if this is new to you. But today what we're going to be doing is putting Turny to the test. So we're going to look at the weekly update that it sent me, and I had input into Turny that I was particularly interested in the research into post-exertional malaise and how potentially to change my stamina or my PEM threshold. And so it sent me a range of updates relating to post-exertional malaise, which I found interesting and which we will pick out and discuss in today's interview. And then in the second half of my discussion with Jess, we actually put 4 questions to Turny in its deep dive feature. They include asking it about disease subsets in ME-CFS and whether there are implications for treatment. We talk about getting ME-CFS as a result of fluoroquinolone toxicity or an antibiotic toxicity, and whether there might be current or future treatments that could help with that problem. We asked Turny a very controversial question, which is, what does it think of the claim made by some brain retraining coaches that ME-CFS is only a hypersensitive nervous system? Is that an accurate claim? Is it dangerous to follow advice that's based on that claim? And finally, we asked Turny, what might the future of ME-CFS treatments look like? In 10 years' time, could there be therapies that have emerged that could actually make a bigger difference to patients than what we have now? Before we get going, I should apologise and say that there's not a lot of the talking heads in this video because we were sharing our screens, and one part of the video, myself and Jess are quite small in the upper right corner, and in another part of the video you don't see us at all. But nevertheless, I hope you find it interesting. I hope you see the potential of this kind of artificial intelligence platform for helping out those with ME-CFS and Long Covid. As I said in the last video, I do have an affiliate arrangement with Turny, so if someone wants to try it, and it's completely free for the first 3 weeks, if someone wants to try it, I do get a small kickback, a small commission at no extra cost to you. I've been looking for a while for sponsors or affiliates that I can partner with as this channel grows, and for me, the mission of Turny is very much in line with my own, which is about communicating research, trying to make research accessible. It's at a fair price, it's not exorbitant, it's $2 a week. So I have felt that it is a platform that I can get behind, which I'm happy to promote. So please leave your thoughts down below, both on Turny itself and artificial intelligence, but also feel free to discuss the various issues raised, the various research and so on in the comments box. Look forward to engaging with you there, and again, hope you enjoy this part 2 of my episode with Jess Dove London. Okay, so this is where I've logged in and I've clicked on my weekly update. So there's a few things here I want to pick out because Turny sent me some really interesting things that I wouldn't have been aware of otherwise. But do you want to just explain, Jess, like this framework and what people see when they get this update?
Yeah, so the whole idea of it, and you can just, so you can get the update as an email, you can get the update as a web, and you can do the update as voice. And one thing we've learned from working with different patients is every patient wants something different. So we will be bringing in some pretty hyper customization in the next few months. And the idea of it at the high level is And I actually think this number might be a little bit aggregated, but there might be one. To be honest, ME-CFS and long COVID is a little bit tricky because there's so many patient comments that come through every week. But let's just say there was a hypothetical 1,000 new things a week. The idea is that Turny is read every one of them, and Turny goes and does specific. If you think of it as workflow, there's 1,000 things that are published online, and then there are these databases of things happening in ME-CFS, trials, events, all these things that happen. It actually goes and looks for them according to your health profile. And so at the bottom, it actually says only the basics are shared. So when Patrick onboarded, he must have shared a little bit, but he didn't share. Maybe there's probably more he could share. So the more you share, and the really cool thing is you can just try it. And then at the end of your weekly update, you can actually press a button and say, hey, and you can just share more about your health history. Say, oh, I'm actually really interested in this, and this is what we've done in the past. The more you tell it, the more it's going to do a good job. We've tried to sort of guide it. So things like, we know that maybe there's a treatment you did in the past. You don't want to keep learning about it, but you might want to know if there's been anything that's going to impact the future. Like there's a long-term outcome from a treatment you did a few years ago. So we will include that, for example. So yeah, the whole idea is it's read everything, and it's going to give you, here we go, it says top insights. So it didn't find anything near to you. It found things somewhat relevant, and then it's got these other opportunities. So there is a button on the right, so begin, and you can sort of flick through these and to see, okay, are these relevant? And Patrick, only you're going to be able to answer if it's relevant or not.
Yeah. So, what was interesting for me, because I do indeed have more to put in about my background, but I'm particularly interested at the moment in how can I improve my stamina? How can I improve the threshold at which I crash? And so there were some papers that this, sent me that helped me to learn more about PEM, and that I just wasn't aware of, despite being quite active in looking through on LinkedIn or social media at what people are talking about research-wise. So I was going to pick out a couple of things. In the top insights, one of the things sent to me was this paper about oxaloacetate, which is a quite expensive supplement that some people take and something I'm interested in. But what I saw in this paper was that it helped cognitive function, but it only helped a little bit with fatigue. And so that's important for me to know, because I would think of taking that more for the stamina than cognitive. And in the somewhat relevant papers, there were a couple of things that were pretty interesting for me as well. Like this one here on epigenetic changes during PEM in ME-CFS, which is not something I would ever have thought about. Epigenetic stuff is when your genes change in relation to the environment. And the fact that during PEM, there's actually epigenetic, shifts is really interesting to me. Something that I wouldn't have thought, as awful as PEM is, I wouldn't have thought it goes that far. And then something I was really fascinated by was this paper, Muscle Fragility Linked to Metabolic Changes in ME-CFS, because this paper ties in a lot with the work I do on the YouTube channel, which is trying to explain the research of Wirth and Scheibenbogen and their unifying model. And what this paper did is it actually developed 3D skeletal muscle, so kind of a created muscle, as it were, and it exposed it to ME-CFS patient Sarah, and then observed what happened. And it saw that the muscles became more fragile, weaker, mitochondrial deterioration, and actually ended up in a hypermetabolic state. You think it would be hypometabolic, less metabolic, but actually hypermetabolic, which does fit with Klaus Wirth's work, because for him, there's muscle calcium overload happening in ME-CFS, which actually will create hypermetabolism. And so that was super interesting to me, because I didn't see anyone mentioning this paper anywhere. It seems to be like hidden. It wasn't discussed. And yet it ties in exactly with my biggest area of interest. And so when I get these papers, it's not just stuff that I can think about, how can I improve my own life? These are things I'd love to talk about on my YouTube channel as well, that I don't think I'd have come across otherwise.
Yeah, great, Pat. And I guess the hope as well is that, I mean, that's exactly, we're all so different, right? In that we all got different things on top. And the hope is that, even that there may even be different types of information, like maybe, because I think it didn't find anything local for you this week. The thing is, there's not always going to be, the reality is not every week is going to find you, not every week there are breakthroughs for you. That's the truth of it. However, there is sometimes topics you want to follow, and you want to follow them in different sources. So the email, actually, we're going to update this a tiny bit, because this is a very new product. So on the email, we actually do even excerpts from podcasts So that's coming in the next few weeks. That'll be in here as well. Because sometimes, there are some really great discussions and you don't want to have to watch 2 hours on an interview to sort of get to the heart of it. But I'm really glad that it's useful because sometimes, the truth is it's a complex thing to know what's going to best match Patrick.
Yeah.
And there's been so many new things happening.
And I see also, this is quite cool, you have an audio summary as well, which is very handy for people who find reading difficult.
100%. That's right. And it goes through it all in sort of that priority of what it thinks is on your priority. So it'll always say, you've listed, maybe you say muscle soreness is your number one concern this week. And it should be about these findings that are coming to me rather than me having to go find.
Exactly. And, and it's not just, as I say, I've picked out research papers, but there's expert discussions, patient insights, it's drawing from a range of areas. And what's this other thing here, the other opportunities? So
that should be, I can see a little bug there. So in terms of just one thing, because some people worry about AI's accuracy, what we do is we just try to not make up information. We always try sourcing. So I can actually see initiate found you the event twice. Sometimes that's one little thing we're trying to fix because it can find the same event in 2 different places. And they've got different URLs. And so we're going to make that better. So these are agents. So there's an events agent that's looking for events for you based on your profile. And there's one, and you actually don't have any trials there. So I don't know why, maybe this week it did. And that's why we probably will put a trial feature on the dashboard because so many people want to know about trials. But for example, my weekly update had 2 trial updates in it. So one of the really complex things, not that we need to get too into it, but clinical trials is just a huge complication because there's no up-to-date place on clinical trials. You can go to a really good website called clinicaltrial.gov. It's an American website, .gov. But it's 30% of that information is not correct because it's just trials are very complicated. They go over many years. They may not find the right people. So sometimes the website isn't up to date. And so what we do is we just get the updates from that week, which means we aren't doing we're just trying to give you the recent thoughts on trials, which means some weeks there's nothing that's relevant to you. The hope is if you live in a particular location, we will let you know about that, anything new on that location. We also will tell you about trials you match to, even if it's not in your location, which we're going to be able to make that customizable because some people really want to know about, some people use trial information to learn about new treatments.
Yes, I mean, that'd be fantastic. And many people, as you say, they want to actually participate.
Exactly.
Now, we're not going to find any trials out here in Bucharest, I can guarantee you. But perhaps when I get back to France, there might be a little bit more going on. So that is the weekly update. Shall we now try some questions on Turny?
Yeah. So do you want me to share, Patrick? I preloaded those questions. Is that what you want to do for now?
Yeah, that'd be great. So I've stopped sharing and you can start. Yeah.
Great. How's that? Can you see that?
I can indeed. What I did before talking to Jess is I asked my ME-CFS treatment and support community for questions that they would like to ask Turny. And we're going to be going through some of those today. And just briefly before each one, I'm going to give my quick thought on it, and then we will see what Turny has said. So the first question is, are there particular disease subsets in ME-CFS and what are they? Could research on subsets help with future treatments? So from my perspective, someone who's very much trying to describe and teach about the Wirth and Scheibenbogen unifying model of ME-CFS, I think that the core aspects of ME-CFS basically are one disease model. They're interlinking, they're vicious cycles that drive each other. They're not random. It is a concrete disease. But within that, some aspects of the illness are going to be stronger in some people rather than in others. So some people may have a stronger autoimmune component with more autoantibodies. Some people may have, worse low blood volume. Some people may have worse microclotting. Some people may have worse mitochondrial situation. And so even though it's kind of going to be similar from person to person, the way it's going to express is going to be different, with some things being a stronger burden than others. And then I think that outside of the core disease model of ME-CFS, there are some problems that seem to be common for ME-CFS patients, but these things can also operate, distinctly or separately from the disease. So that's like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, where people have, connective tissue issues, or they may have neck issues, cervical instability. They might have pelvic congestion or venous congestion, which can cause blood flow issues. So there may be problems that operate distinctly that further worsen ME-CFS, but are in fact themselves, can be problems separate to ME-CFS occurring. So that's my feeling. And I think that I hope for a future where people they get diagnosed with ME-CFS, and then the doctor says, we're going to find out where the strongest burden is for you. And then we're going to have treatments that can help lift those particular burdens, lift those anchors, and that'll hopefully help your body the most to allow it to actually deal with the other issues itself. So that'd be my take on it. And I'd be interested now, Jess, you can show us what Turney said.
Yeah, so when Turny creates this report, at the moment it takes a little bit of time, so I did preload this just so people know. It's unlike ChatGPT, it's not trying to use the large language model for the answer. It's trying to use the AI to find the sources. So it's a little bit of a different process, and it will get quicker and quicker. So the whole, and it's going to get better and better. The hope is that it has this little personalized information first for you, and that's again because sometimes we can't make the connection. So this profile is on my own health condition, so I used my own information, and it did talk about. So firstly, it's going to say this is very interesting for you because I have a history of this particular triggers, like I have triggers of heat, for example. And then it says on the left 15 sources. So it actually went over 500,000 sources to create this. And again, remembering our hope is that it's not too generic. Now, the basics is going to be nothing, I don't think, that exciting. I think it's going to be very similar to ChatGPT. We use ChatGPT for this, but we also do a search. So it isn't just using the OpenAI model, but it should give you just this higher level information. That's going to be I don't think this is probably the exciting part. Now, where I think it gets interesting, and remembering not all questions are going to be optimized for patients. So, patients aren't always going to be able to, sometimes in forums, people do have interesting answers. But for us, the reason we include patient voices is if you said, I'm looking at doing HBOT and I'd like to know, what could be the side effects, patients is probably going to be your most interesting piece, as well as studies. But studies intentionally limit who they study. They actually exclude all the variant people on purpose because they're trying to get an effect as quickly as possible. So patients are going to have some answers here that may be some useful, but this question is probably more optimized to research and experts. So here we go. It's going to pull in it's going to pull in 5 to 10. Again, it looked across all the recent papers and it's trying to pull out the exact thing. So here it found a paper where they did look at subtypes. There is a symptoms clusters paper that it found, finding 13 major groups that are actually distinct, which is super interesting because I would never, it makes sense. It's such a heterogeneous condition. Again, it's trying to find you the exact, it's trying to do all that work for you. And again, our probably belief as well is we're trying to give you sources. We're not trying to write vanilla answers for you. In these sort of complex. And so here it's trying to summarize some of these mixed opinions, because again, research has mixed opinions in them. And then the second thing it's going to do here is it's going to pull out these interviews from experts talking about this exact issue, because what we do is we use AI to transcribe podcasts and YouTube episodes. And sometimes these are 2-hour long episodes, and we try pull out these pieces so people don't have to watch them all. And then you can click on the link and you can actually go and watch. You can actually go look at these particular episodes.
What I like about this is the absence of the vanilla answers, as you say, because what I want from AI is it for it to be a tool for me where I'm still the one who's thinking. I'm still the one who's delineating and discerning the information and not just being told that this is the answer. So I like the way it gives me different perspectives. Maybe I don't agree with some of them, but I want to know what they are. I want to know what the experts are saying. And for example, the paper which suggests 13 different subtypes, I want to be able to consider that myself.
And what it does, we probably will turn this feature off. We definitely will. Don't worry. It actually emails you these reports if you want, so you can kind of come back to them. But I guess when we've launched this again, that's why we're calling this a deep dive, because you don't always want a deep dive, but sometimes you really do want a deep dive, on these sort of pressing issues that you're facing.
Yes, absolutely. So let's now go to the second question, which is a really interesting one. It's, given again by a patient in my community who has this particular issue. And he's asking, what are the current and potential future treatments for mitochondrial damage particularly in the context of fluoroquinolone toxicity, which for those who don't know is a particular kind of antibiotic which can cause some people a lot of problems at a mitochondrial level. And this person actually had ME-CFS triggered from taking that antibiotic. So I think what's interesting, I don't have any particular answers to this. I'm just curious what Turney says. And I think what I would have hopes for people with this kind of problem is, are there clever treatments coming in the future that are going to be able to really work at a mitochondrial level to help people out in ways that are not possible right now? Like last night, I was watching an interview with Rob Fust, who's an ME-CFS researcher, and he was saying that his lab is partnering with a pharma company which has actually been creating medications for people with genetic mitochondrial damage. And they are now thinking, how can they repurpose their drugs for people with ME-CFS, because something similar is kind of going on. So this is really interesting now to see what Turney says.
Yeah. So again, it starts with this personalization. And, I think this is we're actually about to update this FYI, because it's actually very hard to do an FYI, like to make the connections. And to be honest, it's telling you too much about the answer. We don't want it to give answers. AI the one problem with AI, it's called confirmation bias. AI always wants to give you that answer. And so we are trying to not let it. But the one thing I like about it, and I'm really interested if it's correct, is it said to me, this is a concern. It says, because I use dietary adjustments and I use a medication, I may already be supporting mitochondria indirectly, which is really interesting. So it's something I didn't know, and I'm going to go look at. So again, the basics, Patrick, I think is not going to be any better than a good ChatGPT prompt. Again, I say a good prompt because sometimes you do need a good prompt to get a good answer. So here we go. It's looking for, it's breaking up all the different treatments into categorizations. Again, I think ChatGPT would do a very similar job of this. Even though we have a different way of getting this particular answer. I mean, it's looking at emerging. Obviously, gene therapy is always exciting for every single condition, even though there's a lot of uncertainties there. Again, patients, I think this is going to be quite mixed because, again, this is such a complex question. But yeah, again, it's going to be just pulling out. And again, remembering some people come into this, and you can come into these questions with such a variance of knowledge. And, you might already be been reading about this for 2 years, or this might be the first time you ask this. And again, this is just going to pull a lot of different thoughts from different patient comments. And then we're going to get into the research. So let's see what it found in recent research. So again, it's kind of and again, I imagine because this is a broad question and there's so many broad ways of trying to address this, it's pulling out a study about this particular supplement. So many people talk about that supplement. And it's pulling out nutrition, it's pulling out stress. Here we go. And then what we do here is we actually just try to give you these papers so that you can actually go. And what we try to do, just for people's information, is when we pull out a paper, we try and actually tell you what it did, what it found, and we even try to give you information on how reliable the paper is. Because there is just so much debate around, this was a case study, this was a clinical trial. And again, there's never going to be the funding or the time to always get things to that next level of reliability. But we want people to know a little bit about, okay, this was, what is this type of paper? Because there's obviously going to be less ways you can draw conclusions if it's sort of just studying one person versus 100 people. And now let's see what the experts say.
Well, that's interesting. I hadn't heard of SS31, a drug used for congestive heart failure, which may repair mitochondrial membranes. That's new to me, as is the AXA 1125 trial, a therapy aimed at resetting mitochondrial cells.
I guess the thing is, how could you stay on top of it all? If there's 10 new episodes this week, or, even there could have been an episode a year ago on a YouTube channel where someone talks about this exact issue and shares a new trial they're working on. How do you capture that? And that's something that's sort of a differentiation we see with ChatGPT, because ChatGPT isn't going to take that person's answer and make that its own, because it shouldn't. It's trying to give you more generalized information. But we are like, well, some people have mentioned these different things.
The weekly update would be super helpful for someone with a problem like fluoroquinolone toxicity. It's a very specific issue, and for keeping abreast of what's kind of coming out there.
That's right, because that's it. And then you can just say, can I please, you can add that to your health profile. You can actually say, I care about this exact topic. You can even tell your health profile topics you don't want to learn about, and then it won't include that in your update.
So should we move on to the third question, which I think is more controversial, but people wanted to...
Oh no, I'm scared. How's it going to do?
Yeah, okay. Wanted to take Turny on with this one. So this is asking if brain retraining coaches are misleading when they say that ME-CFS is only a hypersensitive nervous system. Could it be dangerous to follow advice based on this claim? I talk a lot about this on my channel. Because I tried to teach the full complexity of ME-CFS and all the different biomedical
Mm,
dysfunctions. And I'm particularly concerned about how more severe patients are often, told this, especially in the
mm,
context of a high-paying course, and
mm,
they're told that that their symptoms are just being created by the brain, even though they can hardly move, and so on. And I think in that context, it can be dangerous for someone to think that because then they could go and try and do some excessive physical activity, and I know
mm.
some people worsen as a result of that. On the other hand, there is a component of a maladaptive neuroplastic state which I think is involved. And I do think brain retraining can be helpful. I just hope for people to understand how it fits into the big picture.
Mm. Well, I'm very happy that the FYI did say, it did say for me, because this is based on my own history.
Yeah.
So it did say the idea might resonate. However, my history of a vial trigger and the complexity may suggest it's more than a nervous system. Approaches based on that may oversimplify your condition and risks overlooking other important factors. So I like that it's given me a little bit of a grounding. And again, the basics is, I don't know which piece is going to be most interesting for you on this particular this, because it is a really tricky question. And so one
Yeah.
of the things we do when we deal with patient comments is we actually intentionally try to summarize the differences. Versus we try to look for more like one angle, a different angle. We try and find the diversity, particularly in patient comments, because it's always one of one.
Yes.
People are going to be that generalized. So, this is going to be quite generalized, but people are going to say some people have found these things helpful. Someone's talked about a specific response. Someone's talking here about brainwashing. Again, you're going to get this criticism coming from patient, the skepticism. Yeah, and it is just it's a topic where there are all three. There's positive, there's all the
Yeah.
different experiences. So maybe we should have a look at research because I actually don't know how much active research there's been in this. So it's saying, I guess, overall it's oversimplifying this thing, and then it's going to go through these different pieces of like, don't know if you're pulling out anything because
Yeah, well,
again,
no, I mean, it's great. It is actually drawing on the research that exists, but it is also saying, that, this, it is clearly saying it would be a mistake to simplify in that way.
yeah.
Um,
And again, the beauty is you can look at specific papers. I think I find it so interesting sometimes to read a specific finding. To be honest, papers can be very disappointing. So many times there's all this research done and the findings are so unclear.
yeah.
And that's again why I think we have to be drawing on more sources than just research. Let's see if there's anything on experts. So here we go. There's a lot of talk about concerns of oversimplification,
Yeah.
which is it seems like that would be, but then I mean there is going to be some people really promoting it because there is also a lot of people who are huge believers.
Yes. So,
Here we go. It fails to address exercise intolerance, these things that you mentioned,
yeah.
or blood
Yeah.
perfusion.
Yeah. That's great. I think that's from me, is it? I think that's my video.
Yes.
Very good. I
When we
approve. I
did
approve. I approve. This
tick.
this message has been approved. Final question. Yeah, this is a really interesting one. I think just to think about, trends and where we're moving towards. And I mean, this is also a hard question because not even the experts know the answer to this. But to see what Turney thinks about in 10 years' time, what kind of treatments may actually be available with new technologies, that could actually be improving the lot of patients.
One thing to mention as well, and this is like, probably debatable.
Mm,
When Tony does the research for you, Tony does a little bit think about who you are when it gives an answer. So this is positive and negative. You could say the criticism would be it could like limit, I mean, particularly these sort of questions where the answers are complex. So,
mm,
for me, I'm really interested how it says, because like I told Tony, because I am doing pretty well with my ME-CFS, but
mm.
my interest is to still learn about new cutting edge things coming out and genetics. And so it did say because I'm interested in this sort of these issues, it's focusing a lot of it on personalized, like, it's talking about personalized medicine and those pieces. But so you could argue that we shouldn't do that because obviously some questions you want to be more open, but this is something we're working on. So I don't know if you have a particular perspective you want to jump into more for this. If you want
Well,
to
I
look
absolutely agree that Berlin Cures 007 is a hugely exciting treatment. That would be one of the, I mean, for me, the two most exciting possible treatments would be the Berlin Cures and the potential Mitochondrial drug from Klaus Wirth. Oh, and it mentions, in fact, as well, MDC-002, which is Mitochondrial. So those are literally the two drugs that I think are most exciting.
Yeah.
That if they
And to
could
be
be
honest,
more.
like I'm almost amazed that our tool has done this because again, it's a complex problem, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
I'm really happy it did this because it's not that I don't have trust in what we've built, it's that it's complex when there's so many pieces of information everywhere. Because the research is also going to be a bit slower. Again, yeah, it's kind of let's see what the research is, people remembering research takes years to pull things together, and it's
Mm.
always going to be a little bit behind what the actual researchers are finding.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of picking out, it seems we're picking out kind of current research, but it's quite solid in what it's picked out.
Yeah. Let's have a look if there's anything new on the experts for you.
Yeah, very interesting, this gene editing and epigenetics. I mean, I don't really know very much about that at all. Then multi-system drugs, okay, sounds good, rather than kind of very specific.
It's also very interesting when we built this system, so many times what people say, it's very funny. It's like research. What's the finding of this paper? We need more research. Or, we need more
Yes.
funding of research. We kind of don't want people just to get that as answers, but it still will always come up.
What would be your takeaway, Jess? Like, if people use this 3, 4, 5 months, what do you want them to get out of it? Like, how do you want Turn to actually change patients'
Mm,
lives?
mm, mm. Yeah, great question. And it's funny, I reflect on my own usage of it as an end user. So probably something because we built this weekly update product, a few months ago. It was basic and didn't do anything, and it was totally, and it's gotten better, and I've been using it, right? And probably what's happened to me with the weekly product is I guess I've just been so surprised on how much is discussed on things that I'm facing, even if it's niche. So I've been able to learn incrementally so much. I've been able to change what my doctor and I talk about. Like I said, we're now, we have a very serious thing that I'm facing with my son, and we're now, we're going to be using the latest knowledge about treating that because I'm in that dialogue with my doctor with more information than he has. It's wild. And that's not going to always be the case. So I guess my other hope is, and this is very, very random, but one of the tools, the event tool, like my son's really into stunts and he wants to be like a wheelchair stunt person. And there was an event on getting teenagers with wheelchair, with disabilities into like stunts and I just had such hope that I'm not alone on this journey, that even these sort of really unique things we're facing, there's all these other people facing it, and there are people putting events together, there are people putting trials together. There's stuff happening when you can feel. So yeah, I guess there's multiple things. My hope is that people get more insights in a way that's digestible. People find new opportunities that help them. People find new ideas when they've run out of ideas, and you don't have that burden of having to do all that mental work. And this tool has just been launched. There's a lot of improvement it's going to have. It's going to get better and better. But my hope is again that we do that kind of heavy lifting with you, and exactly like you said, more agency, more empowerment. I have this belief, Patrick, and maybe it's a bit of a painful one, but I think it really is on you. I think I've come to accept that it is on me, the patient, the carer, and it's not because my doctor doesn't care. It's because the system is what it is. It's because of the complexity of health information. It's of the lack of funding of certain things. So, because I think it is all on me, then it's like, how do we all be more empowered more easily? How do we join together more when there are things that are working, and maybe we need a push, for something to come across the line. And historically, that's all been just through individual relationships. I remember a specialist telling me, well, you should try this drug. My one colleague in this one country, they're trying this. It's chance. Like it's, it's like, so yeah, my hope is more empowerment, to feel more empowered and to know even when in a condition like ME-CFS, there is a lot happening. And look at all those things we just saw. When I was unwell, I was given one thing to do. And I mean, can you guess what it is, Patrick? One thing.
You were told to exercise,
Yes.
right? How did that work out for you? Yeah.
Well, I'd be sitting in bed for 5 days in the dark.
Yeah, yeah.
one thing I was told. Do you know, I was told one other thing, and maybe this thing was, and I believed it. And is that just placebo? But he said, oh, you should be better in 2 years. That was the only thing. I went to this one specialist. I went across the country because he was the one person doing this thing, and he just said, oh, do exercise and you should be better. He actually told me, and again, I think it's a little bit, I don't agree with him on this. I think he was totally wrong. He said, have purpose in your life. And I think it's very patronizing because it's like so many people have purpose.
Yes.
I found it very awkward to like deal with that advice. Like,
Yeah.
that one.
Well, I mean, Turney is providing a million times better advice than that, and this is speaking to an exciting moment about what we're not what technology is now capable of.
Right.
And I really commend you, Jess, for seeing the potential of AI and to actually really adapt it for ME-CFS, for long COVID, for cerebral palsy and Parkinson's too, of course. But to really adapt it and help people out, and I'd say it is in the vast majority of cases, 99% of cases at the moment, sadly, it is on the patient. We are the ones who have to be our own agents. We have to be the ones who are trying to move forward ourselves. It's just how it is at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really commend you to be creating such an affordable, platform for people that can really help them out. They're still in the driver's seat. They still have to think and reflect for themselves, but it does the heavy lifting. And, I just want to thank you for coming and sharing more about Turny with us today.
Thanks, Patrick. It's been great.